to make egg wash. So there's an egg out there. Again, I'll worry about the water when we get there. Oh, you might hear Bramble start making noise. My mom just got home. It's Alirien, and today we are making apple pie to celebrate Lughnasadh, also called Lammas, which is the first harvest Sabbath. Being that it is the first harvest, it's the very, very beginning of harvest season. Lughnasadh is celebrated with bounty, abundance, prosperity, but also with transformation, with change, and with wiping the slate clean, purification, bringing things to an end so that you can prepare for a new beginning. Because of its timing, around the end of July, beginning of August, Lughnasadh is associated with any of the crops that come into harvest time around this time of year, and especially apples, which is why apples are a prominent symbol for the span of time from Lughnasadh, basically all the way through Halloween. I've always associated apples very strongly with late summer into autumn, and even just the very beginnings of winter. My family and I make mulled cider every single year once it starts getting cold. But I've never made apple pie before, so we're gonna give it a go. I am actually following Rosanna Pansino's basic apple pie recipe from her cookbook, from the Nerdy Nummies cookbook. She also has 2 videos on her channel about how she made apple pie. It's the pie, where all of the apple slices are cut to be the numbers from the number pi. And she also has a sponsored video she did with the game Heyday, where she made an apple pie based on the one in their game. I am following mostly the recipe straight out of her Nerdy Nummies cookbook, so if you want to find more about this recipe, you can go find the cookbook or you can go watch her 2 videos. I will cover what ingredients we are using, and I'll explain, as always with voiceover, the correspondences or the meanings behind whatever ingredients we haven't covered in the past. And I'm going to explain when I deviate from the recipe, why I'm deviating from the recipe in that spot. For the pie dough, we will need 2.5 cups all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which I have back here, 2 sticks of cold salted butter cubed. I have 1 stick there and I have another one back here. I also have an extra 1/2 stick because we'll need some for the filling as well. But 2 sticks of butter for the crust, and 1/4 to 1/2 cup of ice water. We have a filtered tap in the fridge, so I will just pull super cold water from the fridge once I need it. And the butter just got pulled out, so it should be okay. I'll probably stick it back in the fridge until I need it once we're done talking here. For the filling, it calls for 3.5 pounds of Granny Smith apples. Here is my first deviation. I love Granny Smith apples, but my mom prefers a sweeter apple. So I looked up other baking apples, and her favorite, Fuji apples, are also on the list. So I'm going to be halving that 3.5. I think it comes out to 1.75 pounds. And so we're gonna do 1.75 pounds of Granny Smith, which is the green, and then 1.75 pounds of Fuji, which is this red and gold one here. That way, the flavor of the Fuji will help to cut back the tartness of the Granny Smith a little bit. And you're probably not going to see very much of the peels of the apples, but if they're visible, if I can like arrange them kind of nicely inside there, you'll have a more like a color variation and might look more pretty. I don't know. We'll see what happens. 1/3 cup of sugar, some more sugar. 1/3 cup firmly packed of light brown sugar. This is an unopened box, but I have an open bag back here, just the box looks better on camera. 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, which is the big seasoning bottle here. 1/4 teaspoon of ground clove and 1/8 teaspoon of ground allspice. I have plenty of both of those. I have the ground ones back here. Again, the whole ones in the bottles just look better on camera. 3 tablespoons lemon juice, and another 1.5 tablespoons of salted butter cubed, and that's what this stick that's already been started will be for. And lastly, for the finish on the crust while it's baking, 1 beaten egg with 2 tablespoons of water to make egg wash. So there's an egg out there. Again, I'll worry about the water when we get there. This is another deviation I'm gonna make. We pre-mix cinnamon with I don't know if it's mixed with sugar or brown sugar. I'm gonna put some of our household cinnamon sugar mix in the egg wash to put on the crust to get a little bit more of that flavor into the pie. Just as a test, just as a little experiment. But yeah, so that's everything we need. I'm gonna stick the butter all back in the fridge until I absolutely need it. But we're gonna move these things aside and start making our pie crust. 2.5 cups of flour, which I am scooping with a spoon because, well, one, the big measuring cup isn't gonna fit in the jar, but two, the flour won't be overpacked. There's the first 2 cups. Sorry, that was loud. And now another 1/2 cup. Two tablespoons of sugar. Staying out. Okay. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And now I will go grab those 2 sticks of butter out the fridge and cut them into cubes. There's 1 egg. There's all our butter cubed in there. I'm just trying to separate the pieces now. Combine with hand mixer until it resembles coarse meal. I don't have a hand mixer, so spoon it is. So the spoon wasn't quite working to help break up the butter to get to the consistency needed, so I just got in there with my hands. A lot of cooking and baking is hands-on more than people realize. But yeah, from what I understand, you need to break up the clumps of butter to get the sugar and the flour to all kind of incorporate in there. And if you really want to make sure everything's mixed well, you can of course stir the flour, sugar, and salt together before you add the butter and start mixing that together. But it should start kind of looking like almost like crumbly sugar cookie. Now it says to add just enough ice water so the dough holds together when pinched, but it's already kind of holding together. So yeah, I'm gonna go get my ice water once I get as much of this off my hands as I can. I've got about a 1/2 cup in here. I'm gonna splash it. It's definitely cold. It's making lovely noises when I squeeze hard enough. I think that might be it. This is a pretty good dough. It's holding together well pinched, so yeah, that is enough water. Now we are to divide this in half and make 2 big flat discs, which will become the base and the top crust. And what I'm actually going to do, I am going to divide it in half, but this is one more deviation from the basic recipe, is I am going to attempt the lattice on the top. So the second disc will get cut into a bunch of strips for me to weave in and out of each other. I'm going to get some saran wrap. I'm also going to grab my kitchen scale, and I think I'm going to divide this by weight. Pound 4.5, so 0.72 roughly. And that's not quite half technically, but so I'll use the bigger half for the base and the smaller half for the top. This one's going to go in the fridge, and then I'll flatten out the other one to go in the fridge as well, and it needs to refrigerate for 1 hour. Alright, so it's been about an hour. I'm going to leave the pie crust in the fridge while I start the filling. I have 4 each of Granny Smith and Fuji apples, which does come out to about 3.5 pounds. It's a little bit more than that typically. 4 apples is about 2 pounds. I need 1 3/4 pounds. So I am going to be weighing the total amount of apple slices with my scale. So I'm going to turn on the scale, put the bowl on it, and tear it. So now it's at 0. And so now I'm going to cut up the apples and throw in the slices to make about 3.5 pounds. I do have an actual apple corer, which will help immensely, though the recipe says to cut them into 1/4 inch thick slices. So what I'll probably end up doing is taking each of the slices this makes and cutting it in 2 or 3 smaller slices so that I can arrange them in the pie a little more easily. So let's pour some apples.
The feminine apple is associated with the planet Venus, the element water, many gods such as Dionysus, Apollo, Hera, Athena, Artemis, Aphrodite, Zeus, and Iduna, and is associated with love, healing, immortality, and fertility.
There is 3.5 pounds of apple slices. So now in this bowl, I'm going to mix together the sugars, flour, and spices, not the lemon juice or the butter yet. 1/3 of a cup granulated sugar, and 1/3 of a cup of the light brown sugar, firmly packed.
The masculine allspice is associated with Mars, the element of fire, and powers of money, luck, and healing.
1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice. Oh, this smells wonderful. We're gonna sprinkle this over the apples, and I'm gonna use my hands to gently turn the apples about in the bowl so that all of them are coated with that mixture. That's about as thoroughly coated as I think I can get them. They might not be evenly coated, but again, this doesn't need to be perfect. I set that aside. I'm gonna get all of these out my way, wipe down this surface to get up any loose flour and sugar. I'm gonna flour it and I'm gonna start rolling out the dough. The size and thickness you want. It says 1/4 inch thick and just big enough around to fit in the pie dish, which I have a 9-inch deep dish pie dish here. I'm going to convince this up off the counter. And it's tearing. My first attempt did not work very well, so I'm trying again with a new approach here. If I can get this to cooperate just enough. Well, it sort of worked. I got it transferred into the dish. It's not perfect. It tore, but it's fine. I'm gonna take the excess dough that's spilling over some sections, and I'm gonna piece it back in where it tore, so that at the very least the main dish is covered. I just didn't want to have to patchwork too terribly much, and it completely fell apart the first time I tried to lift it off the counter. I've incorporated what was left of the dough into the other portion. Here is our dish doughed up and ready to go. So now we are going to add our apples. It's nice to pour in, but I'm going to get a little fancy here. And I'm going to alternate colors and go around the outside. Be immediately visible. Alright, so one thing I did forget to do while mixing was add in the lemon juice, so I'm about to drizzle that over the top here. And it says to dot the last 1.5 tablespoons of cubed butter over the top, so I've got that there. So now I'm going to roll this out to about 1/4 inch thickness and cut it into strips, and I'm going to attempt to lattice this over the top here. So we're just going to do a flat top. It's okay. This is probably going to be made do with what I had. Somehow I ended up with not enough to cover the top, even though I definitely had too much for the dish part, and I couldn't do the lattice, and there's bits of peels poking through the top, but you know what? It's fine. So now I'm gonna make our egg wash and brush it over the top, and then we're gonna throw this in the oven. 1 egg. And 2 tablespoons of water. And this is our cinnamon sugar. I'm gonna just sprinkle this across the top here. And we'll whisk this together here. Have this little silicone baking brush. Just needed enough to coat the top. So this goes in at 425 for 15 minutes, and then we'll reduce the heat. So now we need to drop the temperature down to 350. Yes, I know. And bake for another 40 minutes, and this is just to get the crust nice and golden brown.
Would you like a peek? So far, so good.
Oh, it smells wonderful.
Oh, it smells great. It smells absolutely.
Alright, we're gonna let this cool for at least 10 minutes, and then we will slice in and give it a taste. It's still pretty warm, but I'd like to try some while it is still warm. Crust is nice and crumbly. Kind of crumbly, kind of falling apart, but that is okay. There's a lot of extra juice at the bottom. So there's the apple pie. I'm actually gonna come up here so you guys can see me a little bit better. All right, let's give it a go. First time making apple pie from scratch. And my mom did actually tell me while I was working that she's never made apple pie either, so. Oh, it's still nice and warm. Let's see, let me get a bit of the Fuji and a bit of the Granny Smith in one go here. It's not the prettiest. This pie crust is hard. This tastes so good. Oh, this is perfect for this time of year. And I will definitely give it another go. I think either what I need to do is double the pie crust amount so I can make 2 pies out of the amount of apples that I had, or I need to have the apple measurement go with like 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of apples, because now that I'm looking at the photo in the cookbook, Ro's baking dish is clearly like, it's the same depth and the same diameter, but the angle from the opening to the base of the dish is steeper, so it has more capacity than mine does. I also think her apple slices are probably not as angled as mine turned out to be. It may have been better if I had just laterally cut the apples all the way through and cut around the core. But you know, this still turned out really well. I am very happy with it. I'm very proud for having tried a new recipe again. I definitely recommend giving it a go. And this, just like the peach cobbler last time, would go splendidly with some fresh, like, vanilla ice cream. I could see like a caramel or a brown sugar, cinnamon, any of those flavors would work wonderfully with that. There is another Sabbath recipe for you to consider trying to celebrate the season of Lughnasadh, the first harvest. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you give it a try, send me pictures or videos of your attempts at any one of the social medias in the Linktree portal below, and let me know what you think of this, or if there are other foods or drinks that you always prepare for this time of year. I'd love to hear what you do in the comments. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a blessed Lughnasadh. Chica! Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, you know where all of the buttons and the links are to show me that love. If you'd like more videos like this recipe video specifically, I have my DIY playlist linked in the cards and in the doobly-doo below. If you'd like to find where I'm getting up to other adventures across the social media universe, you can find my Linktree portal, as I mentioned before, in the description below. And as always, I'd like to give a huge thankful shout out to my coven of patrons who continue to be my biggest supporters. And if you, dear viewer, would like to join their ranks, again, check that Linktree portal for my Patreon, which starts at $1 a month. Thanks again, stay tuned for the Lughnasadh tarot readings, and keep aiming, my loves. Mwah!
Is that Mama? I know. Don't jump.
Oh,